trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
Real leadership right there. That was a clip of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, of course, the Democratic House Minority Leader, from earlier this year, which was embarrassing for Democratic voters for obvious reasons. Now, despite widespread criticism of his leadership, if you want to call it that, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez apparently does not believe he should be primaried. Your 2 cents, Cenk.
Well, I was there when we started primarying Joe Crowley, one of the top Democratic leaders, with AOC. Well, I'll tell you about that after you hear this.
So why exactly is AOC defending Hakeem Jeffries, especially since she was elected specifically to challenge milquetoast, pathetic politicians such as himself? Well, in a statement, well, let's start with this actually. So New York City Council member Chi Ossé just filed paperwork to run for the House of Representatives in Jeffries' district. Now, in a statement, he told Axios the following, okay? Democratic leadership is not only failing to effectively fight back against Donald Trump, they have also failed to deliver a vision that we can all believe in. I think a lot of Democratic voters read a comment like that and it really does resonate. However, it's worth noting that Ossé stated he is only exploring a run right now, so he's not certain to challenge Hakeem Jeffries. He hasn't fully committed. As for AOC, Ocasio-Cortez told Axios during a brief interview at the US Capitol that she was not aware that Ossé was challenging Jeffries, but she added, I certainly don't think a primary challenge to the leader is a good idea right now. Well, when would it be a good idea, according to you? And look, she's not the only progressive who doesn't want Ossé to run and challenge Hakeem Jeffries. I'll get to all of them in just a minute, but before I do, Cenk.
Yeah, no, I don't mind the other folks because they might have a legitimate reason and they might be acting strategically. And I don't know anything about Ossé, so I'm not vouching for anyone. I'm not saying what the exact right strategy here is. But when it comes to AOC, that was a little bit clearer. Why? Because we formed Justice Democrats, I was one of the co-founders, and the point of Justice Democrats was to get progressives into Congress, and when they got there, they were supposed to open the gates. So how would you open the gates? Well, now that you've done a spectacular, miraculous victory like AOC did against who, as we mentioned earlier, Joe Crowley, who was in Democratic leadership. In fact, most people thought that Crowley was going to be the next Speaker of the House after Nancy Pelosi. So he was literally supposed to have Hakeem Jeffries' job until AOC defeated him in a primary. And when we were running those primaries, part of the reason I started Justice Democrats is because I asked all the other left-wing groups in DC, is anyone primarying incumbents? And the answer was no, because they were all scared. They did not get permission to primary incumbents. Well, that was the whole point of Justice Democrats. We're not asking permission, we're just doing it, right? And we're aggressive and we're gonna capture the Democratic Party and bring it over to the Bernie Sanders image, generally speaking, of what we thought was economic populism. So AOC gets in, and that's when she's supposed to help all the other new challengers, challenging incumbents, just like she was, right? But as soon as she gets in, all of a sudden there's reluctance. But these are my colleagues. Oh my God, who cares about your colleagues? They would have said the same thing about Crowley. But you didn't mind when we were getting you power. And now all of a sudden, whoa, that's Democratic leadership. How do you not see the irony?
Well, to me, this is my read of what's happened with AOC. First of all, I think throughout her tenure, she's had maybe a good take on some policies, but horrible political instincts. That's my take on it. Putting that aside though, at this current moment, I really do think she is preparing to run for higher office. Now, whether that's going to be Chuck Schumer's seat in the Senate, or some people think she might even run for president in 2028. I really hope she doesn't. I don't think she's ready for that. But nonetheless, if that is what she's preparing for, well, maybe she's trying to keep her powder dry. Maybe she's trying to maintain a positive, friendly relationship with Democratic leadership so she gets the type of support that would be necessary for that kind of run to be successful. Because we all know that if the Democratic establishment wants to work against you, oh, they will crush you. There's no question.
Well, in the old days, they would have crushed you, but she's not. That's why her instincts are all wrong. Nowadays, they don't have any power to crush anyone. This is when you should be most aggressive against them.
Right.
But she's their friend now. She's their colleague now.
That's true, and
she
that's
has
the other
things
part
to
of it.
gain from them now. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about it. So the whole point of Justice Democrats was to break Democratic leadership, not to cozy up to them. So if you've cozied up to them, you missed the whole point of the organization. It wasn't to help your beloved corporate colleagues. It just wasn't. You're totally wrong about it. So I don't care what you want to run for, and I want you to run for Senate. I think that makes sense, but I don't know. Maybe you're waiting for permission from Chuck Schumer. I don't know, but you seem to love this Democratic leadership that now not just progressives, not just populists or outsiders, but almost all the Democratic voters hate. Now you're the last one to join the party. You were supposed to be the first one to join the party. You were supposed to start the party.
Yeah, so look, this is my take on primaries in general. I think you should always be welcoming of primaries, of all primaries, not just of Hakeem Jeffries. I think if you speak out against a primary challenger, especially as someone who has built a career as a result of being a primary challenger to a pathetic Democrat, it just looks really bad. Because if Hakeem Jeffries is a great leader, if his constituents, the Democratic voters in his district, feel that he's done a great job representing him, well, then he's got nothing to worry about. But apparently he just doesn't want to have to deal with a challenger on his own side, because he would have to prove and show that he is a good representative. So I just think this was a bad move by AOC. It's one of the many foibles that we've seen from her. And people get upset because they think you're way too nice to someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has a past that obviously I've been very critical of and I do not like. But lately she's been doing some pretty great things and she deserves credit for it. But understand that as someone who was a lifelong Democrat, as someone who really did believe in AOC in the early years when she was first elected, I had higher standards for her. It's kind of like the Israel-Hamas thing. Israel has put itself in the position of we represent civilization, and that's a terrorist group. Okay, well then there's something that comes along with that, a certain expectation that you conduct yourselves as a civilized country as opposed to barbarians. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you're Israel, right?
If you're Israel.
So look, Marjorie Taylor Greene has shown courage by challenging her own leadership. She challenged him so much, Donald Trump is now calling her Marjorie Traitor Greene. And now today in a press conference, Marjorie Taylor Greene called Donald Trump a traitor.
That's representing a foreign government instead of America first. Yeah.
So that's what challenging leadership looks like, okay? And I mean, Tom Massey's the king of that. And now Ro Khanna doing beautiful work from the left, challenging leadership on Epstein files, on Israel, etc., right? And is anyone on the Democratic leadership calling AOC a traitor? No. Are they calling her any names? No. Why? Because she's not bothering them at all. She's aiding and abetting. And so look guys, when you get, and last thing on this, when you get into Washington, the culture there is so thick and so toxic that it's hard for an average person to understand. So they get in there and instantly, literally everyone they talk to is telling them, attacking your colleagues, criticizing your colleagues at all is the most toxic, disgusting, terrible, mean, evil thing you could do. It's the third rail of Washington. How dare you criticize a fellow Democrat? How dare you do that? And they all get brainwashed into it, and they do. And they walk around like zombies. We now love our Democratic colleagues. You primaried them a minute ago. You all won in primaries against those same people. But now you got in and all of a sudden, everybody's comfortable. And if you challenge the incumbents and you challenge leadership, you're gonna become very uncomfortable. And they just couldn't get themselves to be that uncomfortable. So at this point, God bless Ro Khanna, He's the one guy going, all right, I'll be uncomfortable, but I'm gonna do the right thing. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.